I saw you, enjoying yourself, John Withering replied. And now it's time to go home, say goodbye to your friends. And they were all looking back. Dick, the champion, her oldest friend Davis, and Humphrey, who was staying with them. Gregory Watt nodded, as did Edward, and little Thomas Wedgwood parted her arm. Dr. Withering, Davis began, when he saw Jemima's face. We are staying for the night. We can bring Jemima back in the morning when I come back, interrupted Humphrey. She will be safe with us, sir. There are 6 of us, Davis told his father's friend. We promise to bring Jemima home and keep her from harm. Besides, I want to be awake with our engine, she told her father. It's what the wakes are for. And with the love of heart, though not necessarily the sense of mind, John Withering conceded. With such fine young men, on a day such as this, he concluded. Then he looked to Jemima. You will come home before the morning sunrise, daughter, he told her. And Jemima agreed, and hugged her father, watching him move off to Reverend Giddy's coach. Around them, the atmosphere had taken a turn. Entertainment and food stalls were pacing away, but the alcohol was flowing. So too were the stories and even the songs that were littering the night air. Jemima beamed at her friends. Come on, Dick told them. I want to spend my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 broken bar guineas on some supper for us all. Looks like I'll have plenty of change after that. You fought magnificently, Davis told him. Dick nodded, but didn't reply. They strode over to the refectory where pasties as big as one of Dick's fists were being sold, and they sat and ate them with boiled milk and weak ale. Edward told Dick and the others about what Drake had told them, and the Boskidnon champion nodded. Slowly. They plan to do that, then? He asked. Well, they'll be in for a surprise when they find us. And it was decided that they would sleep in shifts, and guard the Cornish engine until the morning. Around them, stories and laughter filled the air singing. The singers were not holding back. A sol, a sol, a soldier I will be. 2 piss, 2 piss, 2 pistols on my knee, 2 pissed, shouted someone. Jemima was hiding her face in her hands, trying not to laugh. For curiosity I'll fight for my count, fight for the count, fight for my countery. They crossed from the refectory to Golcoth, the light just fading now. It was getting colder, so Edward brought out some of their precious coal and lit the back boiler. They sat round it and talked of the next day, and of the engine and of the potential Logan attack. Jemima was feeling sleepy, and she rested her head on Davis' shoulder as the rest told stories that became more and more ghostly, the evening light on the metal glowing as if to make the engine's crossbeams to appear to be wings, and the firebox a mouth of breathing fire, until a snap, a crack. Above them, something was moving. In a second, Dick was on his feet, Edward beside him. Davis looked up and prized Jemima from his shoulder. She blinked and stood beside him. The miners? She asked. Dick had got up the steps and was looking, head over the edge of the engine pit. Edward, go around, she heard Dick whisper. More crackling as Gregory Watt, the oldest of the group, followed Edward and Dick. What do we do if it is the miners? Thomas, who had been ordered Jemima's willingness to defend herself earlier that day, now felt frightened. Don't be scared, Thomas, Humphrey told him. We have the undefeated Cornish wrestling champion with us. What could we fear? Here. Davis handed Thomas a piece of cake that he had saved from earlier. Eat this. Around them there were voices, this time chattering and laughing, some singing. Edward dropped down into the pit beside the engine, making them jump. Heaven! Edward! Davis exclaimed, and asked what was above. If there were someone causing trouble, it wasn't them. More singing diffused down to them under the engine. Harass, harass, harass him in the dark. Each hit will find its mark. Wasn't the Logan miners? Thomas asked, glancing to Humphrey and then to Jemima. It was, Edward told them. That dirty sneak of a one who Dick fought was there. Broken bar, a whore, a horse will carry me. I'll fight for my count, fight for the count, fight for my countery. The singing drifted away. Feet came towards them, Dick and Gregory. They're going to the Kidley, the alehouse, Gregory told them. But I heard them agree they would come back. Then I'm going after them, Dick told them, but Gregory grabbed his shoulder. Too hasty. He told him, then looked around at the group. Not devious enough, they gathered closer. As the most unlikely supporter of Dick's and Edward's Cornish engine, the son of the man who was protesting about its existence. Some of need to guard the engine, that leaves some of us free to follow them to the alehouse. Davis, Edward, he turned to look at them, stay here with me, so we can guard the machine. He looked to Humphrey and Dick. Go to the alehouse, surprise them, trap them somehow. If they're going, I'm going, Jemima insisted. Not out there at night. I promised your father to keep you safe, and you won't be on the most promiscuous night of the year. Jemima felt herself blush. There was silence for a moment, then Edward whispered something to Dick. Yes, we can, Dick Trevithick replied. I'll take Humphrey, I have a little trick he can play. I'm coming with you, Dick, Jemima insisted, and he nodded, telling them the plan. The steam engine's pump had an outlet channel that let the water pumped from the mines go straight out to sea. That channel for the engine as it was in Golcoth took in the office hut and led to the alehouse, all under the rock. It'll be just like being in the mine, but we won't be seen outside, Humphrey summarized. If Jemima's going, so am I, Thomas told them. Right, said Gregory, where's the channel? Trevithick. Dick crossed to a point about 10 feet behind the steam engine. At chest height a passage began in the granite. Jemima felt her heart sink. I can't go in there. Jemima stopped. They stared at her. They really didn't see her dress, which was what Jemima meant was stopping her. She was not a woman to them, but a miner, an engineer, a colleague, a friend. Nor I, said Thomas. He was a little younger than Humphrey, and the age difference was showing. Come on, Edward winked at Trevithick. Ever been in a mine at night? He helped up Jemima, who gathered up her dress and clambered down, into a tunnel that was no different to the ones all over the mines, before handing her a candle and holder from the stack behind the engine. She took the other 3 so that the young men could have one each when they got up. Above her, the lip of a tube that would lead back to the pumping chamber. Each stroke of the pump would push gallon after gallon over the edge and down this way, and she wasn't surprised to find that the channel sloped gently downwards, the surface smooth for it had been used for many years by the newcomer that had been there and the water had scoured the rock face. A scuffling behind her made her stop, and Dick was behind her, followed then by Humphrey and followed by Gregory. Where's Thomas? Jemima asked. Gregory nodded his head back towards the engine. He's cold, I think, Gregory told them. Davis has him, he's by the fire. They climbed on, and could hear more singing as they went. It's the Kidley, come on, Gregory insisted. Bawdy songs were filtering down. Someone's father once dug a way up to the drinking establishment, Dick told them in an uncharacteristic moment as they inched along the smooth passageway. Don't look for trouble, Dick, Jemima warned. Just stop them getting back to the engine somehow. Trouble? Asked Gregory. The Illigan miners who took a liking to Miss Withering. Trevithick grumbled. Gregory, of course, didn't know now that. They'll be sorry they saw you. No, Dick, don't, Jemima told him, turning to Gregory for an ally. Don't do anything. Oh, we won't, said Gregory, winking at Dick. We won't think about the Utoxeter maneuver. The Utoxeter maneuver? Let's just say. Gregory laughed. They didn't see the horses coming. A hatch above them told Jemima that the mine's office hut was above them. She turned to Dick and Gregory, shaking the skirt off her dress. The mine office is up there, she told them, by way of explanation. Both men knew what she meant. She couldn't go into the alehouse dressed as she was. Gregory pushed open the hatch. Light spilled through as the moon illuminated the room. Jemima jumped, trying to get her elbows over the sill, but it was a bit too high. She handed her candle to Humphrey. Jemima, Edward said to her, mock admonishingly, get in there and come out as miner for all that is precious in this world. Poetry and fishing? Asked Humphrey. They laughed. One big jump, and a boost up by Gregory, and she was there. She had not been into this one before, but, as with all mine offices, a row of hats were across one wall with candles set in the brim. Breeches and shirts set underneath them, all as musty as each other, but a bit of digging about and Jemima found a freshly laundered set. She had got the front lacing off, but had forgotten about the buttons at the back. "I need some help," she called. Gregory had his hand up on the door, but Hiraeth pushed past him. He closed the ceiling door behind him, which was, to them, the floor. "Dick?" Jemima turned and then turned back. She'd managed the over-trousers and found a pair of boots, but the lacings were beyond her. "Can you broken bar?" She gestured to her back and turned away from her friend. It was the work of a moment, hands smoothing down her body to find the start of the lacing. Dick's fingers light at her waist so Jemima could wriggle out of it. Dick handed her the overshirt and was folding the dress when she turned around. On her flight down to Bristol, sometime in the future, Jemima would have vivid memories of that night, that moment. It must have started then, her piece of heart, given and never recalled. The little party of troublemakers continued to climb through the water outlet pipe, which would eventually drain overland into the sea. A slow cycle of water displacement. And within moments they had got to a door on the other side of the alehouse. A shack built of driftwood with a bar across the back. Jugs of ale stood across it, a large man with long, grey-black hair guarding them. The kidley was rather full, but there seemed to be no partitioning of minors as usually happened in drinking establishments. Here, all were mingled together. "How will we know which are from Ilogan?" Humphrey asked. Jemima looked, and after a moment located both the brown-haired man, drinking and laughing with another man, the fair-haired man the other side of him, his face swollen and bruised from his encounter with Dick. "There," Jemima told Gregory. Dick had spotted them too, his face one of menace. "Now for the horse trick," Gregory Watt told them, and pulled Humphrey aside. "What's the—" Jemima began, as Humphrey dropped into her corner of the alehouse. He curled his hand around something, and then walked, if a little unsteadily, towards the men. "Is someone waiting for a horse? Free to get back to Saul?" His words were light, and those further away couldn't possibly have heard him. It wasn't an Ilogan miner, it was Jigo Martin, her former worker. Beside him, Ted Karki got to his feet. "I'll show you, sir," Humphrey told him, leading Jigo outside. "You know which the Ting Tong miners are, and now we know which are the Saul miners. Those left are Ilogan." Jemima looked across to Gregory. "And Humphrey?" "I've told him to go back to Edward and Davis," he told her. More singing began as Humphrey spoke to them, and put something in Jigo's hand. Her slender neck, her handsome waist, her hair well buckled, her stays well lad, her taper white leg with a net, and A, C, for her A, B, E, D, and her. "Right," interrupted Gregory. "My turn." He slid down into the alehouse. It was too full for him to be noticed, and Jemima relaxed a little. "And a broken bar. My little sister Millie is a pro in Piccadilly. My mother is another in the Strand. My father sells his arsehole in the Elephant and Castle. We're the biggest load of bastards in the land. My uncle's a vicar. A broken bar. Oh, let down your drawbridge. I'll enter your keep nonny nonny, enter your keep nonny nonny, let down your drawbridge. I'll enter your keep." A broken bar. The bawdy singing continued, even in Spanish: Tengo un peque tilde plus minus o problema, tengo la pica muy grande, cuando estoy con mi novia, la cosa se pone hard. "I know this one," a voice piped up. Jemima turned from her place beside Dick, just inside the passage. "Thomas, I wanted to come to you." "What do you know?" "A broken bar." But the singing had begun again, and Thomas was joining in: "Can't find the secret to your combination for your chastity ablation. A broken bar for the cunning old bastard has fitted a Yale nonny nonny, fitted a Yale nonny non. The cunning old bastard has fitted a Yale." "Thomas," Jemima scolded, noticing the mirth on Dick's face, "you're 13. And you're a girl, Jemima. You shouldn't know these things." "I know what a Yale is," keeping an eye on Gregory. "You think I haven't been to see the locks being made in Willen Hall?" And Gregory had got close to the Ilogan men, and said, "As to the room in general, gentlemen, George Walgan's horse awaits outside. Who is in charge of taking it to him? I have your money here." To their surprise it was Lud who got to his feet. Gregory handed him a sixpence. "Sixpence?" scoffed Lud, pushing it back to Gregory in disgust. "You will get the £5 when you get to Tehiddy. but you must give the horse directly to Mr. Walgan. Gregory, no, Jemima hissed, as Gregory Watt smiled, and gave a brief nod in their direction. Lud smirked, drained his tankard and strode through the door. Gregory left too, and would be heading back to the engine. What now? Jemima wondered, but within minutes, Gregory was back beside them. Nothing at the steam engine, he told them. Now for part 3. He bent his head to Thomas. Want to have some fun, Master Wedgwood? Despite Jemima's protest, Thomas Wedgwood was brilliant. He got his way to the door, and nodded a few times at the people coming in. He went out, standing by the door, shouting outside. Quick, quick, Mr. Walgan's horse is being stolen. He will offer £5 to anyone who will stop his horse from being stolen. Gregory, Jemima turned to her friend. Just wait, Gregory replied, looking out into the Kidley. The bar emptied and outside a crowd grew. Jemima could hear voices being raised. Disagreeable voices, which grew to shouting outside. They were fighting one another. Now a broken bar. Tell me that wasn't fun. All three of them dropped into the alehouse, Jemima waiting as Gregory and Dick poured themselves a jar of ale, Gregory leaving sixpence under the bar, for the barkeeper had also gone outside, presumably to recover his customers. 2 more drinks poured, for Edward and Davis, and the three of them walked past the throng of miners, convinced that both George Walgan's horse was being delivered to him and, at the same time, being stolen. You stopped them then? Edward asked, as they climbed down to the steam engine, Gregory passing the beer to him and Davis, and told them of what they had done. Thanks to Mr. Watt Jr., Dick told them. Gregory smiled broadly. Too drunk and incapacitated to damage the steam engine now, he told them. One of them, the brown-haired man who had attracted her attention earlier, had been staggering around with a broken nose. Dick had smirked as they passed, perhaps wishing it had been him who had meted it out. Jemima, who had picked up a jar of milk and had left the twopence she had found in the over-trousers next to Gregory's sixpence, called for Humphrey to take it off her. They sat together drinking milk and ale, cheering the horse trick's success. The moon was setting when someone suggested climbing up to the upper platform of the engine, and they continued, laughing and singing, until someone noticed the sunrise. 88,888,888 over the short tufted grass from Cambourne to Meadowsweet entourage went, all 6 of the young men around Jemima as she hurried with them. Now, you go quietly in, Gregory Watt instructed her, as Thomas Wedgwood took her hand. A flash at the corner of her eye caused Jemima to turn, and she saw that Humphrey Davy was already shinning up the side of the house to the window of his own room. I left it ajar, he hissed back down to them all. Faces beamed in the increasingly brightening dawn, and Gregory and Thomas waved up to him as he made it, clambering over the window ledge and raising his arms in a silent cheer. You'll see us soon? Thomas asked, still holding Jemima's hand. Jemima took a step towards the young boy and placed a kiss on his forehead. Just as soon as father makes plans for us to visit Shropshire, she told him. And she felt the glow of happiness of the secret between her, Edward Bull and Dick Trevithick, a steam engine on wheels, which could be used at Madley by Lord Dudley. That was the aim, and to be out of Watt's jurisdiction. What a remarkable evening. Davis Giddy told them all. I just need to escort you 2 back to my house. He turned to Jemima. Goodbye, dear friend, I am glad we all got to go with you. The handle turned at the lock, and Jemima nodded to her friends, before turning towards the back door of the cottage. With luck, she could get herself undressed and be in bed for a few hours before being back before noon to Golcoth. See you later, Edward, Dick, she told her work colleagues, and watched them walk down the garden path. So it was a shock when, as she put her hand on the handle of the back door and made to turn it, that a hand enclosed hers. 10 minutes later, Jemima, no longer sleepy, stared at her ceiling. Her hand drifted to her lips, and she thought about what had happened, what he had done. More importantly, what he had said. I love you. Those had been Dick Trevithick's words to her, as she had turned to see who had stopped her momentarily going inside Meadowsweet Cottage. He had then put his hands to her face, and his words had been accompanied by a kiss, a heart-melting, knee-trembling kiss.